Welcome to the Clickdown. I'm your host, Steve Beals. In today's episode, we're going to dive into one of the recent public tech preview announcements that we have made, the Citrix VDA for macOS. This really has been one of our most anticipated announcements that I can ever remember. The product team has been working for some time, tirelessly, and honestly being one of the early adopters and testers, thinking back to where it started to where it is today at Public Tech Preview release. It's a great testament to that team. During the Private Tech Preview, there was a ton of great feedback given, and we expect even more now that we are in Public Tech Preview. Bringing our secure HDX access to macOS devices has been a need for so many Citrix customers for a long time, and it's so great that the time is finally here. So, in today's episode, I'm going to answer some of the questions that have come up regarding the Citrix VDA for macOS. First, let's start with the use case. What use cases can benefit from the Citrix VDA for macOS? It really starts with developers and designers. Looking first at the developers use case, where they are developing iOS, macOS, Apple Watch, and even Apple TV applications. All of that development work is done on macOS devices using Xcode and its related tools. The need has always been there to enable a secure way and provide an exceptional end-user experience via remote access for this use case, be it for a workforce distributed globally or in cases where physical devices are being shipped to them globally, and the need to host the physical devices in a central data center may be there. For the designer use case, specifically multimedia designers who heavily use Macs, the Citrix HDX experience with the Citrix VDA for macOS provides a stunning visual and audio experience for use wherever they are and regardless of the endpoint they are connecting from, and this will remain secure. What about from an architectural standpoint? How does the Citrix VDA for macOS provide access to macOS devices? Well, the Citrix VDA for macOS offers a remote PC access connection to these physical macOS devices. These devices can be deployed within an office, customer data center, or even a macOS service provider. Non-domain joined machines are also supported, eliminating the need to add your macOS devices to an on-premise Active Directory. Currently, only Citrix DAS can register and provide these devices to end users during the public tech preview. However, our roadmap does include this functionality for our on-premises Citrix virtual apps and desktops. So how does the enrollment and registration process work? We have just published a detailed deployment guide for the Citrix VDA for macOS, which details the prerequisites and steps required to enroll and register the macOS device with Citrix DAS. It's a rather straightforward process that requires you to first create the machine catalog for either a remote PC or a single session machine type, and then create an enrollment token that will be used during the VDA install to register the VDA with Citrix DAS. You can then run the VDA installer on the macOS device, enable the Citrix Graphics Service and Citrix Input Service, and use the enrollment token you created to register with Citrix DAS. Create the delivery group, enable the rendezvous policy, and you're ready to go. And like I just mentioned, we have a step-by-step guide on this process on Citrix Tech Zone, so go check that out today if you're looking to test this feature out. So what are some of the HDX features available when using the Citrix VDA for macOS? This release is packed with powerful capabilities. It supports our base Citrix HDX features like graphics, audio, mouse, keyboard, IME, clipboard, corresponding policies, session reliability, client reconnections, and more. But it doesn't stop there. It also includes advanced graphics and audio features, multi-monitor support, high DPI display, adaptive graphics, and full-screen H.264 and selective H.264. This release also includes graphic codec optimization, Apple Trackpad experience support, and fast user switching support. With these features, you can expect a seamless and immersive experience on your macOS device. And what macOS hardware and OS platforms are supported with the Citrix VDA for macOS? Well, any Mac device, including Mac Mini, MacBook Air, or MacBook Pro, iMacs, Mac Studio, or Mac Pro devices with Apple Silicon M1, M2, and M3 based processors are supported. Any Intel CPU-based Mac devices are not supported today, so if you use those device types, you will not be able to use the Citrix VDA for macOS. On the OS side, both Venture version 13 and Sonoma version 14 are supported. However, there is a caveat that not all sub-versions have been tested. So if you do run into issues, let us know. So are there any specific network configurations or Citrix Workspace app versions required to run the Citrix VDA for macOS? And the answer is no. Nothing more than what is generally required when using Citrix Cloud. At a minimum, the macOS device must have port 443 open for outbound traffic and ports 1494 and 2598 open as well. For Citrix Workspace app, we recommend using version 2402 or later for Windows, Linux, or Mac, and version 2403 for iPad or iOS and Android devices. What if you have a large number of macOS devices that you want to roll this out to? Can a UEM or MDM tool be used? Absolutely. You can use your existing UEM or MDM tool to automate the whole process if you'd like. And we've already documented some best practices and instructions on our Citrix for macOS product documentation page. The last question I have been asked the most is, who is this tech preview open to? Well, today, if you're using Citrix DAS as either your primary control plane for production or for testing purposes, it's available. So you can try it out. And again, the simplest way to get started is going to be by following our deployment guide on TechZone. So we're all very excited about this new VDA release and look forward to the feedback we're going to receive. If you have feedback, submit it directly to the Citrix VDA for macOS Public Tech Preview download page, or you can provide it to your Citrix account team, or send an email to vda-mac-feedback@citrix.com, which is going to go directly to our product management team for review. Lastly, if you do use the Citrix deployment guide for Citrix VDA for macOS, leave a comment and let us know how it worked for you. That wraps things up for today's episode. As always, thank you for listening. This has been The Clickdown.